that as you are speaking to them, what you are sharing, they are fully hearing, and that what they are sharing, you are fully hearing as well. I'm super excited that you are here today for Simply Sarah. Stay tuned. I shared with you that this conversation for me is like just being in the space of beauty and light and serenity. I want to introduce everybody to Emmi Ali. We've been walking life together for several years, and when we met, I instantly felt this connection of this is somebody who sees people for who they are in their completeness. And so welcome to Simply Sarah audience. I'm glad that you are here, whether you are here live or that you are here listening when this works for you. And Emmi, thank you so much for saying yes to being on the show.
Of course, thank you.
Oh, it's such a delight. Share, please, how you got to be where you are today, friend.
Sure. Well, I'm here today, like sitting here today, talking to you because I think I was 20 years old and my parents were officially getting a divorce. And that's kind of like where everything I thought I knew up to that point was right and correct, turns out it wasn't. So then I kind of had to like start from scratch, build the foundation from the ground up. And it was on me because I was an adult. I couldn't rely on anybody else, which that was hard. But, that's kind of where it started. That's when I saw I had to start making changes in my life. It started out external. And then after reading a few different books, one of them in particular, I realized it starts internally. And the book, it was The Untethered Soul.
Yes.
Yeah. And so that book was like, oh, I have a lot of work to do,
The wake up call.
There, I just started my journey and I started doing therapy and spiritual work. And I met people along the way and I started, like holistic health, not so much like dieting and stuff, but more like mentally and like for my heart and for my gut. And then it somehow brought me to you. And then I learned Reiki from you. And and now I'm here.
What an amazing journey. And I love that you share that out of the ashes and the disappointment and the deep grieving of seeing your parents' relationship radically change. That in that you said, I'm an adult at 20 and I am going to figure this out. And that you began looking outside for what it could possibly be. And The Untethered Soul is such a great read. What was it inside that book as you think back? What were some of the granule pieces inside of there that caused you to know that there was hope? Because it's one thing to look at your life and go, and then just like, it's easier to go back to bed and pull the covers over the head than it is to say, wait a minute, there's a spark of something inside of this that makes me know that I don't necessarily know the way, but I do know that the work is worth it.
Yes. There's a particular chapter, I don't remember specifically, but he's talking about having a girlfriend. I don't know if it was him particularly or if he was just like giving an example, but you had it was like a blue Mustang or something, and you were with this girlfriend and you guys had the best relationship. And, for whatever reason, you broke up. And it could be 5 years later, 10 years later, you're driving down the freeway, the trees are there, the cars are there, you're just driving. Do you know this part? I don't know. And you see that blue Mustang or that blue car. And all of a sudden, you don't feel good. You don't know why, but it's because that feeling that you have that brings up from having that old car with that old relationship and how it ended and all of that. And that was a particular like insight for me that I was like, oh, I thought like one, a lot of the times you feel things and you don't know why you're feeling them.
Right.
So that was comforting for me. I was like, okay, so like sometimes it's my life is good where I'm at right now, but it's things from the past that my body is so used, that's either it's held or it just my subconscious remembers.
Yes.
And and my conscious self is like, where is this feeling coming from? But it's coming from the past. And he basically states that you can feel better about it. And there's he gives like little like tidbits on what you can do. I don't remember them exactly, but reading that, I remember thinking, okay, so the next time I feel something and I don't know where it's coming from, because sometimes that happens,
Yes.
go internal and say, okay, how am I feeling? What feeling am I feeling? I never would ask myself that, Sarah. I would never ask myself, how are you feeling today? I ask other people all the time.
Yes.
But I never felt that. So really getting to know where my emotions were coming from, what feelings were real feelings, what were coming from the past, how could I heal them, healing my inner child, all of that. It started from just understanding that it's normal. And that's what I liked. I was like, oh, okay, I'm not the only one that this happens to. Okay.
Yes. I love that concept that you're sharing, that we're never alone. So we may
Yeah.
not know the other people who are feeling the emotions that we're feeling, but we're not the only person on the planet feeling those emotions. And I will share with you that I have spent a lot of time with the website uh, word Hippo, because I
Okay.
will put in the word that I think of what I'm feeling, but I'm like, that's not really the
That's not
granular
right.
feeling that I'm at. There's a word that's going to be better than this. And I remember one particular morning, about 4 o'clock in the morning, sitting out in our garage, because it was the place that I could be with all the lights on and not wake anybody up at that particular time. And this is when we were in class together on Saturday mornings, and just looking for the words. And I was just digging through word Hippo, trying to find words that would really help me be able to label what it was that I was feeling about certain events that had happened in the past. And just that space of being able to label and see it was just comforting for me. I'd been so afraid at different points of being able to actually feel the feels. And then to realize, I have a sister who's a double board certified physician, and she'd shared with me that even the most difficult emotions within 15 minutes have shifted and changed. We cannot, as humans, keep the intensity of whatever the emotion is, even happiness. We can't keep it, right?
Yeah.
You have to keep recreating. And so if I didn't want to keep recreating the negative, then I needed to find ways of being able to label it and be able to see it, and then be able to transmute that and whatever that happened to be. And like you, Reiki has been super helpful for me, as have been other spiritual classes and things that I have done, that you've done as well. In
Yeah.
this space, then, what did you find to be something that was scary perhaps to do, but afterwards you felt that it was so beneficial and helpful?
When you say that, do you mean just in terms of healing or just
Yeah, I would say that for me, going to the very first time that I went and tried Reiki, that for me was super scary. I'd never
okay?
heard of it, didn't
Yeah.
know, and then walked out of a 15-minute session and slept the best that I had in 4 years.
Yeah.
So it was so transformative for me, but yet going in, it was like, I don't know, not really
Yeah.
sure I really want to be doing this, right? It had a fear piece to it, connected for me to it.
Okay. So I don't think there was ever a time where I was, seeking self-help. And I say that, I don't
Right?
know how else to say it,
Yeah.
where I was fearful going in because I was so, and I hope this word comes across well. I was so desperate
Yes.
to want to be the best version of myself that
Yes.
the fear almost kind of dissipated because of my desperation.
Yes.
So, therapy was kind of a taboo thing, especially in society today. I mean, it's a little bit more open now, but within certain cultures,
Yeah.
it's just like frowned upon. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
Yes.
you don't do that.
Right.
So that, yeah. So then, so that was something when I first went into like a real therapy session, there was a little bit of, should I be doing this? Or like there was questioning. I don't remember being that fearful, but I do remember thinking like, is this really going to work?
Yes.
You know, and then because of that doubt, whenever I would have like a family member say, well, like you're doing it and I don't see a difference, oh man, that would hurt.
Oh,
So working through that doubt within myself
yes.
and understanding that this is for myself,
Right.
it took a while. It took like over 5 years. So this is for some people, it might take less. Until finally when my mom said it once and I just like didn't even care. It like slipped. It was like,
Yeah.
I was like, okay. Then I just kept going.
And like you, I was raised in a way that, some people went to therapy, but not necessarily was it seen that I would go to therapy kind of a thing, right? Maybe other people might do that, but I don't know. And that coming to that realization that it wasn't for anybody else that I was doing it. It was because the world was crazy making for me, that I was looking for answers. And I knew, and I was very, very fortunate that the person I was referred to as somebody that, gosh, 35 years later, I'm still in contact with and still touch base with, because I'm sharing life experiences now differently with her. But that she has been somebody who's been so consistent, and she's growing along the way as well, right? She hasn't stayed the same either. But so fortunate in my world that I was able to sit with somebody and truly was spending more on time with her than I was on groceries for a period of time. And took a second job just because that was how important it was for me to be able to have that time with her. Because sitting in that space, I knew I wasn't crazy. I just knew that I needed to work through different ways of seeing the world and find one that worked for me, that allowed me to have peace of mind and for me to be with people that maybe I would feel crazy around, but to know that that was optional. I didn't have to feel crazy. I could if I wanted to, but I didn't have to.
Yeah, it's an option for you. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's the most important thing that I've learned, that any and all of these tools that I've acquired throughout like my journey, I'm 30 now. So like 10 years of doing all of this, work on myself. Once I came to that like final point that this is for me, it was a game changer because because when you asked that question, I started to like think back. A lot of the times I would take 2 steps forward, and then the moment something would happen outside of me, I would take like 3 steps back because my intentions of going, although they were good, they weren't necessarily just for me. I wanted to make people happy. I wanted, people pleasing and all of that. And overcoming that and coming to the realization that I do like to people please, and then working through that, you get to know yourself in a deeper way. And it's actually very like liberating.
I love that. The liberating, and then also the laugh afterwards, because there's such joy inside of that.
Yeah.
That, yeah, I know myself, and yeah, this I like and this not so much. This I'll put up with, but that, forget it. And
yeah. There's freedom in knowing exactly who you are, and still wanting to get to know who you are, because it's always a journey.
It is.
When someone says something and you're just like, that is so false, you're just like, okay.
Yeah.
And you just walk away and you're like, okay, whatever.
And I think also for me, really coming to a place of allowing people to have their own journey, and that I don't need to be coercing or putting up parameters of what their journey needs to look like. It's their journey. And if there is a cosmic birther who is helping me, the one that I call Papa, helping me navigate life in order for me to take levels and layers off and remember and open up, who am I to think that I'm the only person on the planet that is going through this transformation, right?
Oh my gosh, yes.
That other people are also being held so close and so lovingly by cosmic birther that it's okay for me to trust in that process. And I think that for me, safety and trust were pieces that I really had to instill today, still work on. I think part of that was because that my dad was taken as a hostage when my mom was pregnant with me. And so those hormones that I was bathed in is something that has been really helpful for me to see that as an adult,
Yeah.
but also then come to that place like you of saying, there's a way to be able to really joyously live life in community and not be people pleasing, and how excellent and good and worthy that process is.
Yeah. Yeah. I think also, uh, to add on to that, to piggyback to that, knowing that the pendulum swings. So once you see something about, or at least this is how it's for me, you see
Yes.
something about yourself, you kind of like go to the extreme and then you're just like, no. And then you're just like, well, that doesn't feel right either. Like, you got
Right.
to find that happy medium for yourself. And what my happy medium is going to be different from yours. Each
Yeah.
person is different and what fits into their life.
So very true. And as you share that, Emmi, I just think of how interesting it is that you are somebody who is amazing with numbers. Like they just breathe through you, right? And yet you are not somebody who is black and white, my opinion, my words, about how you necessarily see the world. You see it in fluidity. So that to me is this beautiful space of juxtaposition that lives gorgeously, fearlessly inside of you.
Oh,
How
thank
do
you.
you navigate the world of black and white with numbers at work and then able to continue as you talk with coworkers and other people and do life, be able to live in this space of freedom and creativity?
Well, I think seeing each person as an individual, as who they are, is really helps me. Especially you, because you said with coworkers, and just understanding and having love and compassion for myself allows me to have love and compassion for other people. It's still a work in progress. I'm not like perfect with it, but like I really do my absolute best to be loving and compassionate with myself. So that's kind of like where the fluidity comes in. Um, but I also don't like complicated. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
sometimes seeing things for exactly what they are, and that's where like the numbers come in because numbers don't lie.
right.
Um, that like kind of helps you in life as well.
Mhm.
You don't have to be in one box like of thought all the time. You can go from one to the other.
Mhm.
Depending on the situation, depending on the life circumstance, or depending on the person that you're dealing with. Um, so that's kind of what helped me. And practice with that has helped me as well. I hope to keep getting better with it. Sometimes it's good to be black and white. You're just like, you know what? This is what it is. I can't do anything to change this. I have absolutely no power. Like I have no control. The only control and power I have is over myself. And
Mhm.
that's kind of like, the black and white thinking, but it really does help you because I don't know, it gives me perspective on like what I choose to feel moving along with my day.
Yes, yes. And I think the choosing is such a powerful word, Emmy. That space of us being able to say, there are all these different pieces that are in front of us, and I can choose to dance with whichever energy I want to. And sometimes people will say, I need for you to dance with this energy, right? I need for you to take care of
Mhm.
this. This is important. And that can happen particularly at work, whether we are self-employed or we're working for somebody else. But there's also this incredible amount of choice that we have. I get to choose what time I wake up in the morning. I get to choose what I'm going to be eating for breakfast if I want to eat breakfast. I get to have all of these choices. And that space of choice at times, that agency, can sometimes feel a little bit overwhelming. And for me, one of the tools I like to do is to take pieces of paper and write them out and begin to write down at this point in my life, what's my best day look like? Or to have a best day and go, ooh, what happened in this day to make the flow of it be one that I would call it a best day? Do you have tools that you use also to be able to choose or to start adding in pieces that help you to have more of those ooh la la days?
Yes. I think I play around with them a lot, so I don't stick to just one. I
Yes.
have a lot of different ones that I like to do. So right now I wake up and I I'm doing the 369 Nicholas Tesla affirmation. I heard about it and I was reading about it and I thought, oh, that sounds fun. The main thing that struck me was the discipline that comes with this, because you're doing it morning, lunch, or
Okay.
afternoon, and then evening, and you're doing it every day. So that's kind of something that I wanted to work on. I wanted to be a little bit more disciplined with myself. So that's what I'm doing right now. I wake up, I write my affirmations. So 3 times in the morning, and at lunchtime 6 times, and then right before I go to bed 9 times.
So is it the same affirmations that you are writing, the same 3 from day to day then, or are you choosing new ones each day?
No, sometimes I switch them up.
Mhm.
But like the past 2 weeks, it's been the same one because I want to really implement it into my
Yes.
coding.
Good
So
word.
that's something that I've been doing. I love to meditate,
Mhm.
whether it's for 5 minutes or 15 or 20, however much time you have. I think it's good to just sit and then breathe. I do that at my desk. I'll take 10 deep breaths in. Um, so I do that along the day. I drive. I have quite a commute.
Yeah, you
So I do that as well. So it's not set times, but I'm just my body needs this right now. So I'm going to give it oxygen. I'm going to give it air.
yes.
So there's that. And then journaling. I love
Mhm.
journaling so much.
Yes.
Just sometimes, and there's no method, there's no reason to my journaling. Sometimes I'm speaking to God. Sometimes I'm just writing about my day. Sometimes I'm writing about my future and what I want for myself. It's just,
Yes.
I'm putting it out there on paper for myself and it feels good.
Yes. Yes. I would love to talk about dreams with you. I know that these is conversations we've had at different points about different dreams that we've had.
Sure.
But how do you see that the information that you get in dreams or the dreams that you have, do you see them as just being something that's out there that your brain is unwinding, that you're, just kind of taking in the information from the day? Or
Mhm.
do you start looking at your dreams and writing them down? And I don't know the answer to this
Mhm.
for the audience that thinks that maybe this is a, a
Uh-huh.
question that I have that I already know the
No, I
answer.
know. Yeah.
We've just talked about dreams that we've had. And then do you see that there are certain messages that come through with, different pieces of the dreams? Um, yeah, dreams.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think that your subconscious is trying to tell you something. I don't think every single dream is necessarily a message, but if you are having, this has happened to me and I don't know if it's happened to you. If you're having a dream that has the same theme, and
Yes.
it doesn't have to be the same exact point by point, but the same theme of, let's just say, somebody trying to get into your house or get into your car. You've had it 3 or 4 times, there's something there. And there's something that you can, dissect. And that's what I've done in the past. Sometimes it's a random dream, where I'm talking to a cow. I don't really overthink those. I don't
Emmy.
overthink those ones. I'm oh, cool. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it does mean something, but in terms of me overthinking it or me thinking what's going
Yeah,
on? What's my subconscious trying to tell me? I don't really overthink that one.
yeah.
But yeah, I do think that there's something there. Um, that's just my opinion though.
Maybe you're supposed to be a veterinarian because you talk to
Maybe, I don't know.
people.
Maybe I'm supposed to go to own a farm. I don't know.
Where we've moved to, we do have cows across the street, and I do talk with them as we're driving by, and just saying hello to them, and
I love
they
that.
occasionally will look up at me and go like, "Oh yeah, it's her again,"
Yeah.
but there's not much conversation that comes back from them with
They kind of
that.
mind their own business, huh?
They do, and I do like it when they are in that particular pasture across the street from us, just because they are so beautiful, and
Yeah.
yes.
I love that.
Yeah, I do too. It's been one of the joys of moving here has been all of the wildlife. Last Saturday morning, we had 4 deer on our property, and
That's
I know
beautiful.
that some people, have very different feelings about deer, but where we moved from, where you and I met in Southern California, we would have deer on our property there. And here we are next to the Smoky Mountains, and how amazing it is to once again see deer. It just felt warming. It felt welcoming. It felt good.
That's
And
beautiful.
Yeah, so appreciative of that experience. As you were looking at where you are and where you have been, you've shared incredible tools with us: the reading, the therapy, the learning to differentiate, learning to listen internally and decide what's important for you, and to pursue that with courage and integrity. Um, as you look at what's next, what are you considering? What are you thinking about? Um, or are you at a place right now? Is this one of those chapters where you are really content and are just taking in the landscape?
Yeah, I am. That I'm definitely at a chapter in life where I feel this is a point where it's like a good place to be settled at. I know I won't be there forever. I don't think I know that. I know it in my gut. Um there are certain things that there are certain times in your life where it's like you are at a point where you're like, okay, I because a lot of the times you feel like you have to keep going, going, going. There's times where it's like, okay, I'm at a rest stop now. I'm going to enjoy the scenery. I'm going to take in as much as I possibly can. Um, with my new position at work, I'm learning so much. So it's like a different learning phase. Learning in terms of like spirituality and like emotional growth was one thing. Now I'm learning like an actual like skill. So that kind of, takes energy. So I'm at that point where I feel I'm at a good place to learn another skill and see where it goes from there. And I feel very happy about that. I feel very content with it. And I feel um, the safety, that's what I'm telling my inner child, at least the safety and the calmness that I feel is good, because sometimes we can feel that it's unsettling because we're not used to it. So that's kind of where I'm at right now, just being content with stillness.
Mm. Oh, I am taking that in. That's really good, Emmy. I think going back to the beginning of our conversation when you talked about your parents, I think that for me, when I come to points of contentment and stillness and begin to dip my toe into that now, that part of my healing is looking at the other times in my life where I have been in those places and then felt like the rug came out from underneath me.
Mm.
And to say, those were those experiences, and I needed to learn things through them. And some of them I would have never said, yeah, sign me up for that. On the other hand, for myself, looking back at those things, some of my greatest lessons learned in my life have been out of hard.
Mhm.
Um, but the hard usually came after a place of peaceful or happy or content. And to know that, yes, there are different chapters, and that where I am right now, moving into a space where I'm beginning to put my toes in the water again, of saying, ooh, this is what contentment feels like. This is what being settled feels like. This is what quiet joy feels like. To be able to breathe deeply into that and to not be skittish about this experience of, this is a good chapter, this is a good place to be, and to own it.
Mhm.
Um, I think that somehow, in my thinking in the Western world, that when you got to a certain place financially or with your job or with those people were the ones who deserved contentment or whatever. And to realize that it has nothing to do about that. Those things can be helpful, but it has nothing to do with that. That contentment really has a place of dwelling inside of our being that we can nurture and encourage, um, and contentment can even be in the middle of a storm.
Yeah.
And I desire to be able to, in this season, carry that into this whatever's going to be in the future, right?
Right. I think I totally agree with you. I mean, I think sometimes people think happiness and contentment are the same thing.
Mm,
Um,
art.
They're not. And also I used to think this. I used to think that the moment I get this, this, and this, I will be happy and I will be content with my life. And then that's it. Um, and that's not true either. You can actually feel contentment and still have that list. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And it's possible. It sounds like it's not, but it is. And so like I'm in a place of where like I'm very content with where I'm at. I'm very content with, the steps that I'm taking. I still have my dreams. I still have different goals that I want to reach.
Right.
Right. So I just want to
Yes.
say that, like, it's not like,
Yeah.
oh, like when you're at this place of contentment, that doesn't mean that you still don't have aspirations or, goals that you want to hit. You still do.
Yes.
It's just like how you said, the rug doesn't have to be taken out from under you.
Yes.
And so it's almost like you're kind of like learning, you're setting your feet on the ground, when babies are learning how to walk. And it's like you're building that muscle. So first you're learning how to stand, and then you're learning, to stand yourself up. And pretty soon you'll be able to stand yourself up. And then once you do that, you'll be able to come in, maybe take 1 or 2 steps. Um, and then so you're at the point when you're at contentment, you're able to like walk. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
But with the goals that you have, you still like, your teeth are growing in, and you I'm just
Yes.
comparing it to like a baby,
Yes.
you're going to learn
Yes.
how to talk soon. And, you're
Yes.
like, this place of curiosity is still there for you. And it's like really cool.
So very true. What I wrote down was contentment is not complacency,
Yes.
because
Beautiful. Yes.
that's just, as you were talking about not being, you still have goals, you're still moving forward, you're still looking at things that are important to you and processing what that's going to look like. And I'm doing the same thing.
Yeah.
I'm in a different place in my life, in a very different chapter. And yet I think that one of the things I really struggled with the word retirement, because what am I tired of? Right.
Mm-hmm.
Means it's dead, right? And so what am I tired of multiple times? And I'm like, I'm not tired.
No.
I have great things. So for me, again, playing with words, and part of it is that I have had this thought that for some people, maybe even I've thought this for myself, that retirement would mean complacency. And that's not what it is at all. It just means I have finished this chapter. I have done this work, and it's been good.
Mm-hmm.
I'm choosing a different chapter. Well, I was doing that 8 months ago, 15 years ago, right? I'd finish a concert. It was good. And I would go on to the next project. And I never would say that I was retired from that concert. We just finished that concert.
Yeah.
And so that the idea of continuing to allow the goodness and the creativity and the just the joy of the journey.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that, as I have been contemplating a little bit about how we've been walking life together, has been your amazing ability to sift and sort people's choices. That's the best way of saying it. I admire this about you, Emmi. Your ability to see and to say, oh, that behavior is behavior that is cautionary. Or the other people would say, oh, that's just easy. That's just kind of a quirky kind of a thing. You have such eyes for wisdom and discernment. And I just want to share with you how deeply I respect that about you.
Wow. Thank you. I really appreciate you saying that. Sometimes when you have this characteristic, it's almost seen as like you're the bad guy, I don't know why. But for me, when I've seen something and I think, well, that's not right, I'm going to speak out on it. So learning how to speak out on it and what I can say when, having that discernment. I was not graceful with it in my teen years or in my 20s, I will say. I'm getting better and better. So that's one thing. But yeah, it's something that I've always had in me. I will say that
Beautiful.
since I was a kid, if I saw something, I just was like, that's not right. Like, I would, I would say something. Um, so I know that in adulthood, we have, when we were kids and we were teenagers, these choices were kind of made on us.
Mm.
So once adulthood happens,
Yeah.
it's up to us to make these choices. So I had to become more graceful. I mean, I would make the choices no matter what when I was a kid or a teenager,
Right.
but I'm
Yes.
saying I would be more graceful with it as I got older.
Mm.
And I had to also, with that, learn that not everyone's going to stand with you when you say something or when you see something for what it is, for what you see it as.
Sure.
Um, and accepting that as well, because sometimes you can feel alone. I would feel alone. I'd
Mm.
feel like, well, let's say a friend came to me and said ABC about another individual, and I would say, well, that's not right, and I'm also friends with that other individual.
Right.
So then, I would let her know, like, you shouldn't, accept that, or they shouldn't accept that, or whatever it may be. And I would be there for support for them. I would see that it wasn't always the same when I wanted or would have liked the support.
Yes.
So learning to understand that just because I do something and just because I'm a particular way when it comes to, standing up for what I believe in, that doesn't necessarily mean everybody's going to be like that.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yes.
It's totally okay. And understanding and having peace and acceptance with myself, with the choices that I make, is more than enough.
Yes. Yes. I know we were recently at a place in the hills of Kentucky. It has a phenomenal story of somebody who just had on their heart that they wanted to go in, and it was an area that was full of bootlegging and violence, and not Hatfield and McCoy's, it's a couple hundred miles away from there, but a very similar kind of experience in terms of, people would have their rifles, and on their rifle they would have the notches for the number of people that they had disagreements with before they had fully won.
Oh,
And,
wow.
exactly. And decided that this was their calling in life, was to go in and to share that it didn't have to be this way. And the work continues on in this area where they have phenomenal education, and people have gone to the highest levels of government out of this area. And it truly is an amazing success story. The place is called Henderson Settlement. And we were going up and had a huge number of things to donate that my mom had been collecting. And so up we go, and when you're there, you call ahead and you say, this many people are coming up, and they're going to be, can we have lunch? Because they make lunch for all the volunteers. People will come and volunteer a full year to come and work on the settlement. Other people will come in just for, days or periods of time, and big groups, small groups, all kinds of different things. Anyways, up we go with all of this stuff. And we were there to have lunch, and it's just long tables, people that, the three of us are sitting together and choose a place where we're trying to not break up another group that has come together. But we are all sitting together in this, in the togetherness of all of it. And I can't tell you who lives there or works there, permanently, and who's just, coming through. I don't know. But there was a certain characteristic of a person who came and then joined us to sit down. And it was partly how loud they were speaking, and they weren't deaf. It was partly what they had to say. And I just became very, very quiet. I was observant because I didn't want to encourage the behavior that I saw. And afterwards, my husband said to me, you were super quiet. And I said, yes, I was, because of A, B, and C. And sure enough, the person did their thing, and I just didn't want to be dancing in the energy. It wasn't that I couldn't be in the space of it. I was choosing to not dance in it. And it was one of the first times that I had clearly seen and said, This may or may not happen. It's not on me if it does or doesn't, but I'm choosing to not be part of that. And I wasn't sure how everybody else around me was going to act and react to it.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate you talking about how sometimes you do feel alone. You do stand alone in that. And other times you don't. Other people feel like they're standing alone inside of that.
Yeah.
But again, listening internally and making those decisions, honoring the inner child, honoring who we are, honoring the coding that we have, the way that we see the world. And yes, being kind and thoughtful and generous, and yes, all of those things, but being willing to be protective and to not encourage other people's behavior that we may deem as being not the highest level, and not sitting in judgment saying that, just observing
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. I mean, and to piggyback on that, a lot of the times, I mean, people will agree with you. They just won't act on it.
So true.
I see that more often than not. I see it more than,
Yeah.
yeah, they'll see what you're seeing. They'll say, yeah, like, and they'll be in total agreement with you, or, you know, you'll be on the same page. But in terms of actually, you know, well, that's just the way it is, or that's just the way they are.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, that's true. That's just the way this person is. But
Right.
that doesn't mean you have to accept it or be okay with it.
Yes.
You know, you can see somebody for who they are and make a decision to not want that in your life, or, you know, or to have a discussion with this particular individual. You can do that. But
Yes.
I see that more often, that
Mhm.
a lot of the times you and I can agree on something. And I'm just saying you and I,
Right.
but acting on it,
Mhm.
that's where the difference really comes in.
That is so powerful, because coming to the same mindset is one thing. Coming to a mindset that I'm actually willing to put my energy into and investigate and try it, and may or maybe not have support, or may even later on think to myself, ooh, should not have done that. Um, yeah, I think that that's such an important place, that for me is that space of maturity. Because Emmy, I have been the one who have said to you, wow, that's great. You go, you use the words. I agree with that, but I'm not standing up on that one. So I do own that.
It's fine. I've done it too. I've done it. Oh my God, I'm not,
Yeah.
I agree, but I'm not going to do it. It happens, you know, like, I will say, when it comes to particular, I'm very big on this. I don't know why. I think it's just certain events that I've gone through. When certain individuals that come into my life disrespect my boundaries, I'm just not going to tolerate that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm not. And I'm not saying like I cut people off, like I'm very like short with them. I have discussions. I mean, it's not like, and then also I know what discussions to have with particular people, and like what's worth it and what's not, you know?
Yes.
Having that discernment is so important. And that comes through experience. So the more you do it, the better you get at it. And then you learn from, unfortunately, it's sad to say, but I had to learn from my mistakes. I'm like, ooh, like I was way too like curt about it. Or I, you know, I acted, was my emotions, you know, driving the car, or was my logic, you know? A
Right.
lot of the times in the past, my emotions was going like 150 on the freeway, and the logic was like locked in the trunk, you know?
Yeah. That's a great analogy.
You know? And it was
Yes.
just like going, yeah.
Yes.
So knowing that and being able to like look back and be like, oh, okay, like that was a totally emotional based decision, and and it's okay, but
Yeah.
recognizing it. So then now when you move forward, you're like, wait, like let me take a step back, let me take a beat. And yes, my feelings are valid.
Mhm.
But how do I exactly want to like handle this, you know?
Yeah. Yes. And I think that one of the things that can be unfortunate for people who are extreme extroverts, extroverts have to talk in order to process what's taking place.
Mm,
Introverts have to be quiet in order to process. And for extroverts, they're just saying it. and they may not mean it. They're going to give you all of it. And then they may say, oh, this is what and they may never actually say, this is what I actually think or feel. It's kind of in the middle, but they have said this whole realm of things. Well, I've reacted
Unedited.
to this over unedited. Exactly. And I've
Mhm.
reacted to this going, that's what you think or believe. And they're just processing out loud. And one of the greatest gifts that we can give to people is giving them that space to be able to process out loud and not to hold them to that, because that just may have been a moment of where they thought or what they felt. But I am also very cautious when I listen to somebody talk over and over and over again about their spouse or somebody in their life who is unhappyable. That's a word that I've made up. But the person is unhappyable. They just don't want anything to do with happiness or moving into spaces. They are just in that space. That's somebody that I want them to have their own journey, but I'm not necessarily wanting to sign up to walk life with somebody who enjoys unhappyable. And that's okay. That's one of my boundaries. That's one of the places that I've come to.
And that's, I like that word, unhappyable. You could also like maybe call it victimhood. I don't know, or something.
Yes.
Is something along those lines?
It could be. In this particular case, it's looking at other people and having to, no matter what they do that's with good intentions, or even the best of what the person has is just never good enough. And in that space is the unhappyable part.
Yeah.
And again, it's their journey. They get to have it. They get to embrace it. But that is one of the pieces that I listen for and watch for. Now that I've gone through several experiences like that, I go, oh, okay.
Yeah. And the boundary isn't for the other person. The boundary, a lot of times people think that, but it's for us.
It really is for us. And inside of making those boundaries, we get to decide and choose to change. It's not like, it's
not an end all be all. Like there's always room for movement and flexibility.
Yes.
But just at that point where we're at right now with that particular situation in person, we're just like, I don't, okay, I'm gonna draw the line here.
And it's worthy of drawing the line in that particular moment. And again, we get to redefine those spaces and decide if we want to keep that there, if we want to move the line, or if we want to do something else with it. And sometimes I put lines in places, and then it's been years later on where I realize that's kind of weird that line is there. Or I had somebody say to me, remember when we were kids and da-da-da-da-da-da, and I totally forgotten about that. And I'm not making life decisions now with that person based on things that happened decades ago that I don't, at least I don't think I'm making decisions on that. And I see them for who they are now in this space and how they have gone through really tough trauma and are making choices and decisions to choose life. And I adore that. That's courageous. That's tenacity. That's the true grit. That's living life.
Yeah. It's admirable.
It is. It is. Well, friend, are there other pieces of wisdom that you want to share before we say goodbye to our colleagues and friends who are listening in?
If I could share one thing,
we have plenty of time.
I understand that the journey that you're on, it's like dating yourself. It's like, so you're getting to know yourself in a different way, in a more intimate way. So, a lot of the times we weren't taught that. We were so used to quick and,
yes.
And a lot of times we don't even really think that we need to get to know ourselves.
Right. What's there to get to know?
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Yes.
So I think look at it in that way. Look at it that you're dating yourself. And some people are going to be like, oh, I hate dating. I know. I used to think the same thing, but actually, it's kind of fun. It's kind of fun getting to know yourself.
Yes.
And so with that, it's not just always going to be like rainbows and butterflies. There's going to be, with the rose comes the thorn.
Yes.
Yes. And the rose is beautiful.
It is.
So, that's what I would say. Just understand that you are beautiful. And yes, there's thorns and it's a little prickly, but when you are a beautiful bud that is blooming or has bloomed, that will bloom again each season.
Yes. Oh, so, so very true. Emmy, I just am so grateful for our time together, walking life together, for the wisdom that you've shared today with the audience of Simply Sarah, for how you have impacted my life in such positive, powerful ways. I love how you are continuing to unfold, and that you are allowing the journey to touch you, and yet you are also touching the journey. And there is just such beauty inside of that. And grateful for you, my friend.
I'm very grateful for you. I'm just, yeah. When you, like I said, when you first asked me to be on the show, I was like, oh, okay. Like, let me like go in, let me go, let me see if I, how I feel about it. And, I just, what, I don't know if I shared this with you when I went in internal and into meditation, spirit or God, or I don't know, maybe my inner child within said, you know, Sarah is someone who always opens her door for you, and it is always safe to walk in. And I've always felt that. So thank you.
Thank you so, so much for that. And one of the things that you had shared with me as we were talking about this is that you could share what you had learned up to this point in your life. And I just felt such expanse in that moment when you shared that, because I thought, yeah, we both have new experiences ahead of us, and freshness and excitement that's out there. And what we are sharing truly is what we've learned up to this point. And as we continue to grow, and we'll continue to have new wisdom and points and ideas, and that's such a delightful thing. So, well, thank you, my friend. And to the audience, thank you so much for being with us and for sharing this journey as well. And we will see you next time.